by acting as sort of a skeleton on the inside of the walls, holding up the building from within the walls rather than from the physical walls themselves. Now, LeBaron Jenny and Louis Sullivan collaborated on a few buildings. Their first one was the first modern skyscraper. It was right here in Chicago. It was called the Home Insurance Building. It was from 1880. It stood at a whopping 10 stories high. I know that doesn't sound like a lot now, but in 1880, 10 stories was a lot. Nobody was really building over 3 or 4 stories at the time, because the old way of building required that for every floor you go up, you go out by 6 inches at the base. So nobody was building up, because you were in fact eating up all your floor space. That way they were instead all building outward. But this new interior metal framework was going to allow them, in fact, to build upward in a very straight, sleek manner, as opposed to the angled way of old, thereby revolutionizing modern architecture and leading to many of the buildings we will see this evening. Now, we're about to cross under our first of many bridges today, and as we do, if you brought your cameras along, I might encourage a couple of shots, because we're about to get our first really great clear view of our skyline, none of which was here 140 years ago. But in addition, just none of this was here. This was all water back then. I don't know what the obvious answer was, but Chicago's answer to what do we do with all the stuff, the debris, the rubble that's left over from the fire was, let's push it all eastward out into the lake, and then we can build for ourselves some more Chicago. But let's get on to some architecture. Coming up on our left-hand side, one building back is that glass column with the weird curvy balconies. That is one of the newest additions to the Chicago skyline. It's called the Aqua Building. It was completed in 2010, designed by Jeannie Gang. The Aqua Building is currently the tallest building in the world, designed by a woman. So we're pretty cool with that. Now, the curvy wavy balconies that we will get another view of in just a moment as we get beyond this building, currently obstructing our view of them, are not only unique to the building, they are all unique to each other. No two balconies alike on that particular building. The main idea behind the balconies was to give the people on each floor the very best view of a site in the city. Now, it wasn't going to be the same thing necessarily from floor to floor, but based on the building's location and the height of each floor, developers figured they could get the very best view of a site in the city. So they used all manner of methods, everything from GPS and laser pointers to triangulation and math, and sometimes just leaning out the windows to figure out exactly what could be seen from each floor, and built an appropriate 6 to 12 foot balcony from there. Right in front of the Aqua Building is this one with the horizontal stripes of alternating colored glass. This is the Swiss Hotel. The Swiss Hotel was designed by a man named Harry Weiss, who was a nautical man. He was a sailor, liked adding nautical touches to his designs. As we are pulling directly in front of the Swiss Hotel, we can see what makes this one so unique. The building's triangular. It's a giant triangular building. So, Harry Weiss, very easy designer to identify in Chicago. If you happen upon another big triangular building later, it is in fact most likely a Harry Weiss design. Now, as we emerge from under the next bridge, which is a phrase I'm going to be saying a lot this evening, we'll get an even better view of the building directly in front of us. That blue sort of mirrored looking building with the pole up on the top. That is the second tallest building in Chicago, Trump Tower. Now, Trump Tower was completed in 2009. It was designed by Adrian Smith of Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill. Adrian Smith also designed, coming into view on the right-hand side, this Black and Stone building, the NBC Tower, back in 1989. So this is actually a great show just how far both a single architect and architecture in general have really moved and evolved over that 20-year period. NBC Tower, 1989, and Trump Tower, 2009. Now the pole up on the top of Trump Tower is actually called a spire. It counts toward the official height of the building. Remember that. We're going to come back to that later. Pole on top of Trump Tower is called a spire, and yes, it counts. Now, if you happen to be looking to stick around in Chicago, last I heard the penthouse of Trump Tower was still up for sale, in case you happen to have something to the tune of $20 million lying around. Might want to check that out. You could have such fantastic neighbors as Derek Rose, who recently bought a condo in there on the 86th floor. I mean, everybody in Chicago happens to know that. That's just something we all happen to know. Alright, so just to the right of Trump Tower is that white building with the clock up on the top. That is the Wrigley building. It is comprised of two towers. The first was completed in 1921. The second in 1925. The Wrigley building is of the Beaux-Arts style of architecture. Beaux-Arts comes from the French for fine arts, and it's really a way of harkening back, of emulating the old European way. The main idea behind Beaux-Arts is that we know people like this style of architecture. We know people want to come to a city that has this kind of building in it. So yeah, we should put a whole lot of them in Chicago. That makes sense. It will draw people here. The design of this particular building was based on that of an 11th century cathedral in Spain, the Giralda Tower in Sevilla, to be precise. Now, the Wrigley building is wrapped in 250,000 individual terracotta tiles. All the tiles are white, yes, but they're not all the same shade of white. They start at sort of a bluish-gray white down near the bottom. Then they go slowly but surely via 6 different shades up to that brilliant gleaming white up at the top. That adds what we call visual interest. Get you looking up that high and appreciating how tall the building really is. Because in 1921, when the first of these towers was completed, there was nothing on the north side of the river. There was nothing over there because the next bridge we're about to cross under, the Michigan Avenue Bridge, the DuSable Bridge, had only just been completed in 1920. And no one had started developing this side of the river yet. Enter William Wrigley Jr., who thought, yes, I should put the headquarters of Wrigley here on this side of the river, that way we can start developing the north side of the river and expanding the city in a way that hadn't previously been done. Which of course worked. However, it was something of an ill-advised notion on his part, trying to get people to an area where they weren't previously living. So now we're here at river level of Trump Tower, whose designer, Adrian Smith, also designed the current tallest building in the world, the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, which stands at about twice the height of Trump Tower, including its own spire. It actually has a very similar look to Trump Tower, so if you just picture Trump Tower twice as tall, you pretty much get this idea of the Burj Khalifa. Now, Trump Tower is a post